call this meeting of the Planning Commission meeting to order. It's Monday, February 11th, and we have a quorum. And the first item we have on here is to consider approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes of January 14th, 2018. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion by Jensen and a second by Bartlett. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Thank you. We have council representative report, and we have Alderman Bartlett. Would you like to give that one?
We have a lot in front of the council still. Second readings tomorrow night on the chickens and keeping them animals, and a number of zoning ordinance changes, but other than that, nothing to report. We'll see how that goes tomorrow.
All right, thank you. And then we have staff report.
Standard staff report is in the packet. If there's any questions about current projects or recent past projects, certainly try to answer them for you. But otherwise, the report is in your packet for your review.
All right.
Craig's got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Bees,
Bees.
any update?
Still with the city attorney.
Yeah.
City attorney.
Yeah, he hasn't forgotten about it. We remind him weekly now.
Okay.
So he's gonna get to it sometime
Yes, I
this
could
year. He'll do it this year. Okay,
I'm sure Regina will want to know too.
yeah. Okay, what we're gonna do then is we're gonna skip item 5 and come back to it. So we'll go to number 6, which is a request by Eli Pitney for a conditional use permit to allow vehicle repair and outdoor display automobile sales uses, including requirements related to a group development, 2 or more non-residential uses in a building at 1005 North Page Street. Any comments from staff before we open up the public hearing?
No, I think the application and materials is pretty straightforward about the request on North Page Street. Applicant's here and can give you his statements on the need. Alder.
Go ahead.
I know both these gentlemen, and they are my customers, 2 of my customers, so I'll have to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, if you want to give us an intro, and then what we do is we close our regular meeting, open it up for a public hearing. If anybody wants to speak, they have an opportunity. If not, then we close the public hearing, reopen the meeting, and take action.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So just let you guys know what my plan is, plan of action.
All right, can you just state your name and address for the record?
Elijah Pitney, business address is 1005 North Page Street, Stoughton.
Okay.
So I've had a used car dealership on North Page Street since 2013, and we're now applying for this permit to be able to offer repair as well for our current customers and also the community of Stoughton. So we currently do not repair vehicles, we just sell vehicles.
Okay. Are there any questions, or Alderperson Bartlett, go ahead.
Question just that, I don't have any issues with this. Drive by it all the time, looks nice. So, but I had a question on those front-facing parking streets that face North Page Street there. Are those only going to be for your vehicles for sale still? You're not going to have any clunkers out there waiting to be repaired?
No,
sitting on the road?
all the other parking will be in the rear, so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we can ask them after the public hearing if something else comes up between now and then. Seeing no questions, we'll close our regular meeting, and then we'll reopen for the public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this item during the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close that, and then we'll reopen for business. And are there any further questions or comments or motions that anyone would like to make?
Make a motion to approve?
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments about the motion? So what we would do, we'll vote on this, and then this is a recommendation that goes to the city council. And that'll be on the council agenda for
2 weeks from tomorrow.
2 weeks from tomorrow. All right, seeing no more questions, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. You're set. If you're welcome to come to the council in 2 weeks.
Okay.
We have a 3-minute at the beginning of the meeting if you want to do public comment, or you can shoot the council members an email if you wish.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming in.
Guys.
Thanks.
Item number 7 is a request by Kevin Urso to rezone the property at 117 Ashbury Lane from SR4, single-family residential, to TR6, two-family residential. And this would be the same type of process here.
Just a quick overview for the commissioners. In your packet, you'll see the material, but just to highlight the property that's in application for change is the one that's, this is Highway 51 along the bottom of the page. Ashbury Lane runs north-south. This particular parcel in the middle here is proposed to go to two-family twin TR6 is the request.
Okay. Hi.
Hello, my name is Kevin Urso, from McFarland, 4720 Farwell Street, McFarland. Property we're talking about is 117 Ashbury Lane. We're looking to change it from a single-family zoning to a two residential duplex lot. And as you can see by the map there, everything across the street and everything on both sides is already that zoning, so we're kind of conforming to what's in the neighborhood. We're looking to do 0 lot line condos and sell them, so they won't be rentals. They'll be, the plan is for owner-occupied dwellings.
Any questions before we go into the public hearing? Go ahead, Tom.
Tim, thank you, Your Honor. Does that mean when you say that you plan to sell them but not rent them?
We plan on doing 0 lot line it'll be a duplex building, but we'll sell each unit. So they'd be owner-occupied versus rentals.
Are the others around you, all rentals are owned, or are they owned?
Some of them are zoned as duplex. Right across the street, 2 of the lots are 0 lot line. The one above it there is a 0 lot line. You can see where they're double lots there. So those are 0 lot line, the 3, 2 across the street and 1 next to us.
Okay, thank you.
So this is currently a vacant lot.
Correct.
Was there a house here at one point?
From what I can gather, no, it was always vacant.
It's always been vacant. Okay. So
I
it's
believe the house below it was moved when the hospital was built. Is that correct? That 2-flat?
Yeah, there was a house that was located on this site and this one. We're
Oh, both sites,
we're
okay.
both moved from the hospital area at
Okay.
one point. This
Yeah, that one's a new.
This one burned down and then
Okay.
it ended up with a new
Gotcha.
structure there.
Okay. Any other questions before we go into public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting and we'll reopen for public hearing. And I do have one person signed up to speak.
Do you want me to sit?
Sure, you can sit anywhere right there, and that way if we want to call you back up. I have Steve Erdahl who's registered to speak, and you're at 209 Ashbury. Is that correct? Okay. Thanks for coming in.
My name is Steve Erdahl. I live at 209 Ashbury Lane. When I purchased my house over 12 years ago, I agreed to a declaration of covenants, restrictions for the plat of Eastwood Estates. Under this agreement, Lot 14 was zoned single family. That influenced my decision to purchase this property. I believe this property should stay zoned single family. This summer there was a duplex built next door to my next door to me. My backyard is now a swamp. I have a creek running through my vegetable garden. I will not be planting tomatoes, pea pods, and green beans this spring. Instead, I will be trying to figure out how best to deal with the city's failures. I'm the one being impacted by this poor decision. It seems to me this is based on profit, not common sense. This proposal is wrong. My hope is that the commission does the right thing and denies this zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that would wish to speak during the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close it, and then we'll reopen the regular discussion here. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
So where would 209 be on this particular? So it's the first one that's currently zoned single family?
Correct.
Okay. And then the two parcels between the subject property for tonight and 209, what are on those? Are those two vacant lots at this point in time?
No, this is a one structure. It's split
Okay.
into a 0 lot line, so it's a twin family home,
Okay,
and it was constructed and then split into separate ownership.
okay. So they go property line to property line?
Yeah, so this is, half of it's owned by one owner, this half is owned by the other.
Okay,
Likewise, across the street, that's a similar situation for this building and this building, separate ownership.
okay. I guess another
Go ahead.
question. In making this change, if we agree to make this change to the TR6, does that have any a change in the setback requirements or the amount of square footage that can be built on the parcel? Or is it primarily just whether it's a single unit versus a 2-unit?
Setbacks are very similar for the TR6 versus the SR6.
Okay,
But you can see, actually, these lots on this side of the street are actually quite deep in relationship to many of the others. But certainly, it's sizable enough to accommodate a twin-family home.
okay.
To meet the zoning requirements, it would.
But even if we left it the way it is, someone could build a large home that would be a single home that would occupy a similar square footage
Footprint.
on the parcel.
Certainly.
So I'm just trying to evaluate in
Yep.
terms of impact of making the switch to potential runoff issues or
Yep.
those kinds of things. Okay.
Any other questions or comments, or? Okay, anything as far as the runoff that we're aware of or that is unusual there?
Anytime you're on the side of a hill, there's areas that run off, and they have to manage or try to work that through. But certainly this site, I think the subject site here is actually quite flat. There is some slope that goes to the north, as was described, but this is quite relatively flat, if I'm recalling it properly.
All right, any questions? Alderperson Jensen?
Question for Rodney, can you speak to the covenants he's referring to?
Well, again, zoning is not the covenants. Restrictive covenants, the city doesn't even enforce the covenants. So if there's covenants that are applicable, they would have to evaluate whether that would be something they have to adhere to or what might be necessary to be changed on those.
Who holds the covenant then? I mean, who's the manager of that?
I think Mr. Ursul's gonna speak to that.
Yeah, Mark Rosenbaum is the developer of that parcel. Called him a couple weeks ago, haven't heard back, called him today, he's out of town. So I have not talked to him, that like Mike had mentioned I should try, I just haven't been able to get a hold of him yet. I know this thing was recorded back in '95, so it's almost 24 years old now, but, as far as the covenants, I haven't talked to him yet.
That was with Rosenbaum?
And now, as far as the size of a duplex, we've got, it's bigger on frontage, it's bigger on square footage for the requirements. I mean, it is a very big lot. It's 13,000, 14,000 square feet, I think. So it's wide enough for it. Footprint size, we're talking probably, 1,200 square foot per side footprint for the so they're not big duplexes. I mean, a house could be just as big as far as controlling the runoff. We'll do everything required as far as erosion control and maintaining drainage. A lot of times when the houses are built, I know he's concerned runoff comes off them, but if the runoff is controlled, I mean, gutters, more water's going to go towards the front of these lots than out the back. Once you put the house on it, it'll get to the street, to the curb, to the storm water. This year was a bad year. I'm sure those yards had a hard time getting in. A little more runoff on a new yard right next to them, I'm sure, has been an issue. I mean, once the grass grows, it typically gets better than an empty lot. But
Okay, any other questions or comments or motions, or what would you like to do? Go ahead, Phil.
One question is, Rodney, do you know when the structure was built that was referenced causing the runoff problem? Do you know when
It was
that
built this year. I'm sorry, 18.
Okay.
Finished in the fall of 18. Site's not fully stabilized yet.
Commissioner Seltzer.
Just, unfortunately, I haven't driven by this, don't know the area that well, but the actual runoff from the lot that we're speaking of, that you wanna develop, is the current incline to the rear of the lot, or to one side or the other?
Like you said,
Or
it's
is it to the
pretty
front?
flat. It probably goes, I would say more of it goes towards the back. So like I say, when you have a 30-foot setback, you put your house above the curb 2 feet, you know, a third of that lot or more, plus the roof is all gonna come towards the front. So I mean, a lot of it will come off the front that isn't right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, or what would you guys like to do? Go ahead.
Well, I guess I hear the concerns, but I see it, you already have multifamily on all sides there, so I don't see a big issue with it. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so here's the motion. In a second, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, so that'll be at the council in 2 weeks also.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
I think it was Seltzer, wasn't it? Tom, did you second that one?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, takes us to item number,
Are you gonna jump to 9 with the public hearing or
or,
not?
yeah, we can go to number 9, as long as we're at it. Proposed ordinance amendment to repeal zoning code, section 78-205, parent 10, number of land uses per building. Anything before we get into this one, Rodney?
Just a little background. Recall, as you learned from City Attorney Dragney and from staff, the CUP regulations and how they're being administered is starting to be really curtailed. So recognizing that, we believe that it's able to be recognized that multiple land uses, if they're permitted already, having a conditional use just because there's 2 permitted uses in the same building seems to be a little unusual to have a conditional use procedure for that. If both uses are permitted outright by the district, but just because you have 2 of them in the same building on a site, to put them through a conditional use process seems onerous and probably not really in the spirit of the change of conditional use regulations. So we're recommending that this be changed from the ordinances at this point. So in essence, a property that has an office as a permitted use in the district, and the other tenant that wants to move in is retail. Both of them are permitted outright in the district, but because they're in the same building, this would require you to go through a conditional use process. We're suggesting that if they're both permitted outright, it seems probable that you would likely approve the conditional use anyhow, and ergo the prescribed standards of a permitted outright use. And so that's why we're recommending moving forward with this change.
Okay, do you have a question before we go into public hearing?
I was just curious if Attorney Dragney or anyone had comment, would we even be able to not approve a conditional use permit if it is outright approved? Does it even?
Well, I think you're going down the right path, because I think it's becoming more difficult you have to have, as you learned, some pretty correct reasons to apply conditional use standards on something that's permitted in a district.
Thanks.
And just to follow up on that, one of the things that I learned at one of our League of Municipalities is there's already an effort to change some of these types of laws that were passed last year. It's kind of like the old joke, you ask 2 attorneys an opinion and you get 3, and that's what's happened with this law. We had 2 attorneys in that room one day and they each had a different interpretation of the law, so it's real challenging. So what we're trying to do is at least make it as clear as we can on our end until they figure out at the state level what's gonna do. I'm gonna be right back. I wanna make sure these guys are okay out here.
Sounds like it's getting loud.
You need backup?
We'll send you, Tom.
Rodney, do you know how many of these come up very often? I don't remember having this issue come up in the last year at least. Does this come up often?
Not real
Pretty rare.
often,
You got one coming though.
yeah.
All right, so any questions before we go into the public hearing
Is,
Here, go ahead.
is this coming up right now?
tonight?
You guys have seen something, or is there a particular reason?
It's kind of an experience thing. I don't think that there's anything on our doorstep that's suggesting we should have to make this change because something might be forthcoming.
Initiated by the laws that were changed by the state.
Yeah. Remember, we gave you those 3 sheets of suggested things that we're gonna work through on the zoning code? This is one of those that we classified as lower hanging fruit.
I just have one question. On the front of this particular agenda item, it talks about section 78-206-10, but then in the draft ordinance, it refers to 78-205-10. And so I'm a little, I don't know if that's just a typo, but it threw me, because the,
Resolution is 78205, yeah.
and the repeal section 78-206.
Yep. They're on that.
Not seeing it.
Where does it say the repeal is 206?
In the paragraph for the agenda item,
And the attached zoning ordinance you attached was 78-206.
Oh, that was just a typo.
Sorry.
Yeah.
so is it actually 78-205-10 that we're,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
all right, just wanted to make sure I was looking at the right,
Yeah.
you are.
all right. So we're essentially striking the verbiage that's included on that second page, ordinance to the common council for 78-205-10, that's what's being stricken?
Correct.
All right,
Yep.
Okay,
all right, then I understand.
all right, we're good. So we'll close the regular meeting, reopen for public hearing. Is there anyone here that would wish to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen for regular business, and that takes us back to this. Any questions, or would anyone like to make the motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion, and a second by Caravello. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. We'll go to item 8, request by Forward Development Group for Kettle Park West Phase 2 conceptual plan support. And we have 2 gentlemen here from Forward Development Group. Who wants to lead it off? You want to start, Rodney, or you guys want to come up?
Yeah, let them just get into it.
It's all yours.
Well, we were here a month ago or 2, I forget. Too long, but we've had several meetings with the Park and Recreation Committee and kind of reworked the park area here. And I think we've got support from them on this. We'll be going back one more time with a final plat, but last time we were here, the commission was missing several members, so we thought we'd come back so everybody can hear this, see it, and comment on it. Because what we'd like to do is, if we kind of get your blessing and everything's looking good, better, you know, any other comments you'd have, we still have time to incorporate into it. And Jim's gonna kind of go through a little bit of history, and then we've even kind of moved into some other areas here that we think would even make the plan even better, and we want to run that by you. Then ultimately, Jim will kind of lead you through what the next process is, and ultimately what that'll be is a final plat of an area that stayed consistent with your comp plan, so we'd like to move ahead with some single-family lots while we're still in process of doing some comp plan amendments for the smaller lots, and we had some other multifamily we got to eliminate and put more into single-family here. So kind of a two-pronged process here, and I just want to make sure you understand that and feel we're going down the right road, so.
Okay.
Jim?
Phil, you were at the Park and Rec meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys have any questions related to comments from Park and Rec, Phil or myself will hopefully be able to answer them for you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is the same map that you see up there. And I find it easier to talk. I need to wave my hands in front of stuff. That's why. This is the plan as it's kind of morphed over the last several months in our conversations with the Park Committee and our conversations internally as we're looking at efficiencies of how the lighting is arranged on the site. Now, I will tell you there'll be some minor tweaks to that as we move forward. Back in October, there was a park site that was in here. Then you can see that has been changed and everything is shifted over to this particular location. Now, understand, right now that's the kind of the extent of that's the municipal limits. So the way this is working is through those conversations with the park committee, it became clear that it was going to be more important to be able to create a park site that's dedicated to meet the needs of the neighborhood being created here, but also enable it to be expanded should the city want to get into that opportunity. If there's chances there, this becomes, perceptively a very nice recreational area. You've got woods, you've got relative slack down, so there may be an opportunity for you to pursue that or whatever happens to the west. This allows you to expand that park rather than have it isolated within the neighborhood. When we went through the calculations, there's a couple things that have happened. This site, which is the senior project that's there, under the rules needs some parkland, the way it works. It needs approximately 3-something acres, 3.4 acres. And just for reference, that area is 3.4 acres, so that would satisfy the park obligation for the senior project. As we work through the densities of smaller lot, single family, with it served by an alley, a variety of house lots here from 65 to 85 feet wide, so it's going to be a mixed neighborhood, as well as these twin homes. These are a shared lot line product down here. The total park land demand looks, from the calculation, looks like about 9.7 acres. That's based upon this number of maybe 185 units plus the 100 units of single family. That's that green area. FDG will be seeking to assemble this piece, or a portion of that, to add to this total to meet the demand for what you see here. So the total parkland demand is going to be all land and just the impact fee part of the deal. The major change that has occurred, you're familiar with this from the previous plans, these yellow areas were originally proposed as multifamily, relatively high density apartment buildings. That has been now changed to a small lot, single family house served by an alley. Or you'll see the literature will say new urbanism, well, that's what these are. These are smaller lots. Attached garages or detached garage, but everything is served by that alley, and so your street frontage is very, very much of a residential nature. Front porches, pedestrian friendly type of product. Working out the details, there's parking in the middle here. These lots that are facing the southeast are accessible both from the alley but by a pedestrian walkway down the front. And they overlook some green space here and of course the wetland and stormwater management facilities. So they'll have this kind of expansive view out the front of the front porch. Where we're at now is we're starting to look at tweaking some of this up here from a utility standpoint and from a lotting standpoint. This street, called Street C, is going to come through. Just to work out the way the water system is in that corridor, and that kind of makes sense. It actually gives you a much more walkable neighborhood, and it also prevents these rear yard connections onto the street, which made a whole lot of sense, because this guy is gonna have to, in this scenario, have to shovel the sidewalk that's on Oak Oak. The sidewalk he's probably not gonna use, so it made no sense. We're also looking at then creating another street more through here, just to get better walkability in the neighborhood. And this would have an alley here, so these will have maybe a little bit larger, still kind of conventionally small lots, but they'll also be alley served. And it gives you a little bit better cohesive neighborhood feel. We have similar type house on the other side of the street.
Those homes are these the ones that are like up in Fitchburg, Sain Road?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
like those?
Yeah.
So they're a smaller, probably 1,500, 1,200, 1,500 square foot, something like
Perfect
that.
house, yeah. It's a relatively narrow lot. It's there's a variety of designs out there. It's a two-story house, kind of tucked up closer to the sidewalk. Yeah, that area that's on the east side of Sain,
Yeah.
that area, that'd be a comparable location to the type of house that you're looking at. You'll see them also up in Sun Prairie,
Smith's Crossing.
Smith's Crossing area.
What do you think the price point's gonna be on those?
I think 275 to 3 1/4.
On those homes?
Yeah.
On
With
those
a,
alley homes?
what's that?
On the alley homes?
Yeah, on a single-family alley home. Now, I mean, you can add, some upgrades to that easily, but the whole development, we're trying to come up with about 3 to 4 price points here, and that would be the lower one, and then I think those lots are 40 to 47, 48 feet wide. Jim talked about having some that are closer to 60, and then our bigger lots will probably be somewhere, I think they're 80 right now, but we're thinking we can maybe go to, 75, 74, something like that, to help keep the pricing down and have a nice home. I mean, a 75-foot wide lot these days, is a pretty big lot, actually.
You'll see that also up near that Sain area in Fitchburg, the Swine Creek neighborhood. Those single-family lots are 68 to 78 foot wide for the most part. More of a conventional style, because anything that's in the light yellow is going to have garage and driveway leading to the street. And the design standards will push the garage back, so it's not all garages you see, but it's going to be oriented. It's going to be more your conventional residential product.
So just a couple of things to add for the council members, the parkland for the, I think they're calling, is it Kettle West Senior Living? Is that what they're calling that out there? I think that's what
Yeah, I'm not sure what they
I
branded
think that's
that.
what they call it on their website. Anyway, we had really deferred the park dedication to go with occupancy instead of building permit, to give them an opportunity to put together this plan that would include that parkland. Otherwise, we'd be looking at taking the fee in lieu of the parkland. So they tried to incorporate that into this, and those are scheduled to open sometime later this year. And the other thing I would highlight is where he showed the extension of street seating. I know the public works guys really like the roads to go through. It makes it easier to snow plow. So I'm sure, those are types of things that they're looking for. Otherwise, you have to, figure out a way to get the snow out of them cul-de-sacs. So I think those would be positive improvements as well as utilities.
And we're sensitive to that, and having been in public management before, snowplow drivers hate cul-de-sacs.
Go ahead.
A couple things. One is I really do like the idea of extending the more traditional new urbanism housing to the other side of the street, so you actually are creating that neighborhood feel along the street. Because if it's only one-sided, I don't think you really accomplish the same.
Visually seem weird.
Is there a way to extend it beyond just that one little section that you've got marked up to be a little bit more along the front? I mean, I know you got a certain amount of lots that you want to get.
We're kind of looking at this as we go through, and seems to make sense. There may be possibilities to have to try and kind of change the orientation so you have that street front
Yes.
to the house. I have to think through some of that, but it probably come up.
Yeah, I think the more you can create that opposing, porch across the street along a longer section of there, I think the more that's gonna be successful versus just having it for a small section. Because I think that's what makes the whole system work is having the opposing porches. And I wanted to double check and make sure, this, right now, it says it's gonna be zoned SR6.
Right, well this part would be,
The darker yellow.
would be the darker yellow in the next iteration.
So darker yellow, just to refresh my memory, the SR6, is that going to allow for these closer to the sidewalk setbacks, where the porch is up closer? I mean, I can't remember what the setback is there. Okay,
And it's gonna have to also be part of the
Plan
plan
development.
yeah,
because of the alley.
okay,
You don't have the capability right now in your ordinance to do a traditional neighborhood design, so
okay,
we're gonna kind of create the new
Standards.
standards for you.
okay.
And then the other thing you'll see is if we, progress beyond this point is they'll be looking at aspects of this development. We'll have to go through a comprehensive plan amendment because of the changes that they're proposing.
I'll get to that point right now, because that's kind of this is still the same plan, but the way this is working because of everyone's desire to open up some residential project this summer or late fall is the final plat it. And the plan right now is to essentially create a final plat that's this area, or this part for right now would be excluded because I'll explain, we've got to go through a comprehensive plan amendment on a couple of these locations. And so then you get Old Open Drive created, probably something at some point down here so we can get this piece in for that parkland dedication and be transfer that property. So the final plat is going to look a little stringy and convoluted here, but that's simply just because of the process. So that way they'd be, FDG would be able to open up, we're estimating, I think, 19 lots, 18 lots to bring those online. It would have a temporary easement here for the water system. That would then be converted into that public right-of-way when the next plat comes through. Now, that being said, this particular lot shows up now in the comprehensive plan as multifamily. So we're just creating that as an outlot to be deferred until the comprehensive plan is changed. And then this area, and kind of the change happening here would also be deferred, but would be the subject of the comprehensive plan amendment and a new revised preliminary plat. Kind of getting into the nuances of the statute here. But to create a new plat, we got to have a revised and preliminary plat. So it's procedurally, a lot of stuff will be happening kind of concurrently, but the idea is to get this final plat through the process right away. That's essentially how it's going to work. So I didn't want to go through all this stuff and all of a sudden you're going to see this really weird looking final plat come up that we kind of wanted to explain it here. Questions?
Do you have anything you want to add, Rodney, or?
No, I think I can just, this is the basis of what he just spoke of. It's not entirely showing the parkland to the south, but in essence, this is an overlay of the preliminary plat that had been approved for this area before. So for demonstration, it shows how this oak opening Jackson Street in this section of Street A is essentially consistent with that original layout. So meeting the conditions that were approved with the preliminary plat when that was approved would allow final platting approval of this, recognizing they're still intending to make some modifications to the other areas that he's described that I think accomplish some of the interests of the parks and other folks and the residential considerations that have been brought up. So this area will change, but this would be essentially the area of the final plat with additional parkland down here.
Yeah, we wanna take care of that parkland dedication up front to meet this, so we need a way to get to it, and so that's why Oak Opening right-of-way is gonna be part of the final plat. Oak Opening itself probably won't be improved here. That would come along, you know, that's part of the developer's agreement, but people will be able to walk and traverse and get down there, it's just not gonna be an improved street yet, because you're gonna need to have the development that's alongside of it coming through to help finance it.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm one that didn't make it last time, so appreciate you coming back. I do like the parkland, I like keeping those existing trees, the multi-use, that's a nice area of parkland. Get away from some of the fields we have, we can use multi-use in there pretty well without having a standard soccer field or something in there. But also glad you got rid of the cul-de-sac. I've had a number of calls, not recently, about dump trucks trying to get in there at 6 o'clock in the morning and beeping, backing up and turning around. So I'm glad you got rid of that. I was curious on the emergency services on that area with the alleyway. You said it would all be covered by an HOA agreement, and then how does emergency services, would fire hydrants be in that alleyway? And how? What would happen is, there's fire hydrants, of course, out here, every 300 or 400 feet, whatever the standard is. And then on this side, this would be designed to allow access through for heavier vehicles, but normally it just appears a sidewalk type thing. You also see this design in a couple spots in Fitchburg too, where the fire lane is actually looks like sidewalks. But this is designed to accommodate turning movements of the fire truck and of
EMS.
collection trucks, which are more difficult to move than fire trucks. So
And I suppose they didn't have any comments about the distance to the hydrants, that's no issue?
well, it would be whatever standard there is.
Okay. Thanks.
Whether they're 300 feet or it's a 150-foot hose run, I forget.
We haven't reviewed the full utility plan yet, but emergency services and the leadership team have been looking at and commenting as plans come in.
And on the half circle as well, do they have anything on that? They're fine kind of getting back in there if they had to get access?
Into this area here, you mean?
I was thinking the half circles that go up in there with their little islands.
Well,
They probably won't be able to turn around in there, but they could reach if they need to.
in theory, this one they may get modified a little bit, but certainly this would still allow them to get through there if they needed to.
Okay.
Concept is sort of, in my mind right now, it's kind of a one-way loop, wide enough at the end that you can maneuver that truck around without any issues. We're open to some design things on that. This little part is a little bit trickier to work with just because of the way the terrain works, trying to create a viable residential product given the industrial land uses that are essentially surrounding parts of it, so you really got to, I don't know, it's a little bit trickier from an urban design standpoint.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm actually kind of curious about where it's noted here about the town of Rutland Oak opening drive, Deer Point Drive improvements to be determined. Do we know any potential of what's going to be determined and when with that, or is that just?
What's determined is that there'll be, what's been the conversation so far, to my knowledge, is that this street cross-section essentially tapers down to whatever existing Deer Point Drive.
Well, Oak Opening up to Deer Point.
Temporarily, there's going to be a roundabout at Road. That roundabout improvement will make some lane improvements to Oak Opening Drive, our Deer Point. And so a lot of, other than that taper, this connection is going to see some complete change in configuration. I'm not quite sure. It's a discussion with town of Rutland as to what kind of changes that they would like to see up here as part of what's happening. I'm not sure that a whole lot will change on this stretch for the time being.
I think if we look back at the conditions on the preliminary plat approval, and I've not read them real recently, but not too long ago, I think, Rodney, we said that we have designated a street width and also an on-street bike path there. I don't think curb and gutter was included though in the cross section. So that's been part of the conditions on our plat approval, and then what we need to work out is really the timing of that, considering, you know, if we're, get this through and we can start building infrastructure, you know, early summer or so, and if we're able to get some lots sold, you know, if somebody builds in the fall, we're not gonna have any occupation until, you know, next spring or so. So it, you know, it'll all come. We just have to work out the timing with the city and make sure that we, you know, have a letter of credit to allow that to happen and get that through.
Your question is to be 2 travel lanes with a paved bike lane on either side. That's kind of the design concept. But it won't have curb and gutter because that's a whole different ballgame. How you have to manage stormwater town.
I think there was only one bike lane, though, right?
I can't recall for sure,
Yeah,
but certainly there is.
We'll check it out, but whatever. I think it was one bike lane, but we'll figure that out. And we have had conversation with the town of Rutland, and basically they're on board with what, you know, what was approved, you know, back then, but we've got to go that next step and get actually some legal documents now approved and signed up between the city of Stoughton and then the town of Rutland.
So I think they certainly have some things that they'll have to do, but in order to move forward, you need some sort of a approval on this. Is that basically why we're here?
Yeah, they're looking to take the next step, and if there's support in this, you heard them talk about bringing the final plat for the upper portion of this, so that they can feel that there's some endorsement of this, and then move to the next stages for the balance of the area as well. Go ahead.
So you're just looking for a straw poll type thing? Or?
Well, there's a resolution in our packet, but it's really just offering whether you support this concept to take it to the next steps or not. If there's anything specific, they're certainly looking for any feedback you're willing to provide on the design or the discussion about layout. They certainly take that back with them.
No, I like the changes that they've made. I think they're heading in the right direction. I like the idea of, you know, I don't know, call them townhouses or whatever you want to call them, in the dark yellow. I like that because that's going to be a buffer basically between the commercial area and the standard residential area. I think Parks Department or Parks Committee, they did a good job of getting some additional parkland there, the trees, saving the trees. Yes, I like that too. So I think it's going in the right direction. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second?
A second. Anything you wanted to add, Greg, or otherwise Matt wanted to speak to it?
Oh, I agree, I can support this. I just had one question about the Street A going to that multi-unit back there. Am I correct, is that just a loading, unloading zone, or would that go to some kind of parking there? Or the parking is in the middle there of the townhouses? Yeah, is that the parking for the multi-unit residential?
This would be like a parking for.
Yes.
Just gas for the townhouses and things, so?
Yeah, these lots are deep enough where they're gonna have a two-car garage and probably a parking pad, you know, it just has to have a single axle design, but because there's no street frontage on this side, unless there's.
You know, I think that's
People with no friends.
I think that's an improvement too. Originally, when the park was kind of in the center there was the question of where do you put the additional parking on Oak Opening or, and I think this eliminates a potential bottleneck there and it makes it safer. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks. Just, you mentioned, I think, the price of around 330,000 for houses,
Now,
roughly.
we're hoping to be in the high 2s and low 3s.
Okay, and what's the width of each of these? I probably need to have done more homework, but of each of these lots approximately?
40 to 45 feet.
Okay, because I mean, I'm trying to balance that with a home here in Stoughton that, you know, would go for that amount of money, in good condition or close to new, usually would have more frontage and I would think in a larger lot. And so I'm questioning, would just an idea of your thinking that what would be the square footage perhaps, or suggested square footage when all the setbacks are made?
For the home?
for a home in lots this size?
I think anywhere from probably 1,200 square feet up to 16 or more. I mean, a lot of those will be will most likely be two-story homes too. You know, they'll have a living room, maybe master bedroom, kitchenette, open space area on the lower level, and then probably 2 bedrooms and a bath upstairs or whatever. But when we, I mean, as we move forward here, we can bring some sample looks and floor plans. We're working on those now, but I mean, that product's being built all over in Madison right now.
It seems to be the preferred product of the millennials.
Yeah. Not a lot of yard
Who are
work. None of us here.
Grandkids.
Yeah.
They don't like to do the yard work, and, you know, access is important to them, and I think there's a lot of amenities nearby for them to utilize.
My thought would just be that probably to get that kind of a price, you're gonna have to have two-story to get the square footage you need. And then backing having the garage on the back alley, I just, homes that generally sell in that range may have larger lots. That's all. And again, excuse my ignorance, but would duplexes be allowed in these kinds of lots? Or is that part of even what we're talking about?
Well, yeah, they're,
These would be single-family detached.
Okay.
Duplexes would be possible here, this is kind of designed as the.
and we went that way. We looked at duplexes, but really the hot product in the greater Madison area right now is those small single-family lots like that with alley access, and that's what seems to be selling. It's a area where you can get in a price point that's attractive to the first-time home buyer.
So I've received some feedback already where people have experienced some issues with snow plowing in the alleys. Who is responsible for that?
The alley would be the homeowners association.
So there's an actual association for all of those units?
Yes.
To maintain that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any other questions or comments? We do have a motion on the table. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. I guess we'll be seeing more of you guys here at some point. Oh, we have some pictures up there, huh?
Well, this just gives you an example of a Smith's Crossing,
This is in Sun Prairie.
just to give you just a street view of some of the, and these are rear alleys loaded with garages in the back.
Yeah, but are those about the same price point? Are you familiar with those at all? I don't know.
I don't
Right.
know. I've not been in the house market for a number of years.
I wouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
if they were more
Yeah.
there, just because of the, I'm guessing, but I'm not certain.
Same type of product you'll see in Pittsburgh.
So it looks like those are all 2 stories.
A few, yeah.
Do you have any market research on whether, these are all starter homes kind of for more millennial, or do more people move out of those as a second home? I've heard a lot of comments of looking for price range like 150 or 180 to 250 for a starter home, rather than 275 seems a little high for starter home, but
Well,
I'm hoping more people move into these and maybe free up some other homes that.
yeah, and you can, I guess the amenities you put in them, you could probably go a little lower than that, but I don't know, what we've been seeing, by the time people kind of add a few things that they want, that you get pretty close to that 250, 270, what we're trying to do is keep that land price down as low as we can too, so that, it offers a little bit of an incentive over, spending $80,000, $85,000 for a single family lot.
The strategy really is to have a variety of product. So you have visualize this as the starter, and then once you get 1 or 2 children, by the time they reach school age, you really want a little bit bigger, so that they're going to move out. So there's going to be some turnover, but keeping it all within the community.
I didn't even try, but that house that I just showed you is assessed at 272,000.
Wow.
Let's see. This one here on your left. Just to give you an idea. So,
Very hard to build a new product for under 250 with land.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going for square foot? Construction?
That'd be You can hold it at 150, you're doing pretty good. I think really you're closer to 175 right now. Per foot.
Okay,
We did just do some, we got a duplex up in the Appleton area, and I think we were about one, on a base unit, we're probably in the 170, but in the finish that I think is what the market is, we're closer to 190, almost 200 per ad. With the lot.
Far cry from what I paid for my first house.
We had our builder had a conversation with a gentleman that looked at there's a parade of homes this last weekend up there, and he was saying, this is really high, and then they started talking, and he asked what kind of home he lived on and that, and the builder said, well, if you build that home today, it'd cost you $650,000 to $700,000. That kind of put it in perspective of why that duplex is being sold for like $430 for one side of it. But yeah, and really the last year or two, the building materials prices have just continued to go up. Well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Be back
All right.
again soon.
all right. Safe travels tomorrow, and tonight for that matter.
Thanks.
Okay. We're gonna go back to item number 5, which is a request by Dan Glynn and our Parks and Recreation Director to construct a restroom facility at Rotary Park, 316 South 6th Street. And who's taking this one?
I can just give you an overview. So the overview of this site, just to familiarize yourself, this is 6th Street. Rotary Park is this area with the pond adjacent to the fire department right here. You'll recognize there's an alley drive or service drive that goes down between this area. There's a dumpster enclosure located off of that on the south side right now that would be relocated to the north side. And then the restroom facility that they're really seeking approval on would be placed in this location with sidewalk connecting to the main line sidewalk at that location. It's essentially a pre-manufactured building. While the materials in the submittal include some stone face and maybe some IFAS, or not IFAS, but hardy board, the intention is actually to have this brick very closely resemble the brick color of the fire station. So it's a thin set brick that can be placed on there. We're doing our best to come up with a color that matches as closely as we can to that brick tone. So that's really what this facility would be.
For the council members, you might recall, I think it was in the 2018 CIP, we had borrowed some money working with Rotary. At the time, we were talking about purchasing a building and putting bathrooms in that location. Since then, we've decided to go this route. It'll be more cost effective, and it'll be something that we can do immediately. So that's why this is here. This is kind of the first step to see if the Planning Commission agrees with this site, and if they do, then the Park and Rec would send out a request for proposals for the actual prefab units. There's a few manufacturers, a couple I know of in Wisconsin, that make these things. Basically, they make them indoors, they throw them on a pallet, they bring them out, and they help install them. We hire some locals to do excavating, the electrical and plumbing, but in a perfect world, you can install them in a day. We're hoping that happens for us. So that's what we're looking at. Any questions? Go ahead.
It obviously isn't going to, when we had the music festival, and that is not going to be enough for that. They'll still have to have the porta potties and so on
Right, I think the idea of this one is mostly for the Thursday night gazebo events, and then as you mentioned, for the Catfish River, this would be supplemented by the porta potties, because more than likely, this will be a 2-stall. There is a possibility if the bids come in, we might be able to get a 4-stall option. I think Dan's kind of looking at maybe putting in an option in the bid, see how it comes back. The size probably wouldn't vary too much as far as the footprint. So that's kind of what we're looking at doing. And we're also working with Rotary for any potential cost overruns if we're over our $75,000 budget. But we think we're going to be pretty close to it. You know, we're looking at metal roof that might add some costs, and then the brick that Rodney mentioned on the side might be an additional cost as well, and then the installation. Right now, we have some estimates, and when we tally it all up, we're pushing a 75, but there's always a few, things that pop up along the way, so we're trying to make sure we have something set aside to cover those as well. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, like it's a far cry, much better improvement over what's there now, the porta pot, and with how much use they get down there. So I guess, were there ever any look at other alternative locations? I was curious if it was ever looked at if we could possibly attach it to the EMS building, have some shared heat or shared hot water system, if that would even be possible, I don't know, to retrofit and move it up there along the wall of the EMS building. Were any other sites looked at that you know of, or the fire department up there, I guess, but yeah.
Well, the plumbing would not be connected to, so there isn't a plumbing that far on the east side of the fire department building. So as far as sanitary sewer and water connections, I don't think that would be very easy for that aspect of it. There wasn't any, I'm not aware of any direct focus on trying to add it to that building.
This site here, there were houses down here at one point, is that?
Yep.
So we actually sent a locator out there, and they were able to find and mark it out for us. And it didn't seem like, especially the sewer is pretty deep, especially as you go down toward, was that Jefferson Street on the bottom there?
Yeah.
That the sewer was actually 20 feet deep there, so that was another issue to put it down on the other end there. Plus, we didn't want to block visibility for those that are viewing the events. So those are some of the things we took into consideration as well. Do you have something?
I guess I'm not convinced on the location either. I mean, I realize this might be the easiest place to build and to locate, but just in terms of park use, I'm thinking the people who are using the park, particularly on Thursday nights, it seems kind of remote. You got to walk all around the back side of the pond to get to the restroom. It's not near the gazebo, it's not near the parking, it's not near, I mean, it just seems kind of really out of the way.
Isn't it where the existing potty houses are located right now?
Close, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the same general area of where the porta potties were.
Yeah,
And
and I can see why we put porta potty, I mean, porta potties are not attractive, they smell. I mean, I can understand why we put those in a remote location, but when we're building a more permanent facility, want it to look like the fire station building. And again, I haven't studied the site. for
part of
this.
it is the terrain too, but we
Yeah.
can, Rodney's gonna pull it up here and we can look at a satellite view of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I guess from I've gone to a few of the Thursday night events, and I know they park quite a bit along both streets,
Right.
but they also use the parking lot that's up here, and they come from Main Street. And so, I mean, it would seem to me, and again, it might be an issue of being able to tie into utilities and everything else, but if it was closer to Main Street and the parking lot area, it would seem to be a little bit less isolated and remote and the way people use this particular area. I mean, I think there's probably more traffic between the parking lot and Main Street and the park than it is from this lower location, just in terms of not making people have to walk way out of their way just to use the restroom.
Sanitary and sewer and water is going to be real challenging in this area. There's a grade change here and there isn't any sanitary sewer and water until you get to the main street, so I don't think there'd be an easy connection there. I think the water main that runs through this building is on the far west side of the building.
Okay.
So I think you'd have a lot of challenges getting it to this location.
All right.
And there'd have to be there'd have to be fill. I mean, there'd be an area that would have to be leveled off to make that happen here.
Okay.
We're
I'm
also hoping to possibly put in more of a trail system
Yeah,
as
that
well.
was gonna be my next question, is that if there was a proposed trail system on the back side of the pond there from up above to I mean, otherwise I might have to walk, well, either on the grass
Right,
all the way
or-
around,
or
or else
around.
come out to the sidewalk and make the big loop.
I've seen a sketch where they would like to do that when
Okay.
funds are available.
Okay.
How that'll be accomplished has to be worked out, but I do know that that was at least in their vision to try to make that happen at some point. Again, there is a grade, you've been there. Actually, it goes downhill a fair amount here, so
Yes.
what that would look like, getting a trail down to there would certainly have to be designed.
Sure.
That's not to say people aren't gonna walk in the grass like you've just described, but
Okay.
to make it accessible, you'd wanna
They
do it properly.
already.
Right.
Well, I know my kids love to run back there,
I'm sure.
so,
Is that the one I saw climbing the wall?
could be, falling off the wall, probably. All right. So the main reason for putting it down there is not only feasibility, but also costs in general. I mean, it's a site that ties in better to existing utilities.
Yeah, it'll be a lot easier, at least initially, to make it ADA accessible as well, which is really, it's one of the things we're trying to do in all of our parks right now. It's a point of emphasis for us, so we can do that right out of the gate here, which I think is beneficial.
Okay.
And then hopefully we can, add the trail system in later, and this will be the first prefab unit. And the nice thing about them is you can actually move them, so if someday we do something else down there, we could relocate it if need be. But for the first one, we'd like to at least get it in here sometime in the spring and see how it goes. Did you have something, Matt?
I guess I just want to add something, correct me if I misstate it, but I guess also want to let you know that at one point, there was a desire by the Rotary Club in the city to acquire that building just on the north side of that drive there. And unfortunately, it fell through, but it may be a potential place in the future. They'd wanted to possibly look at putting a shelter there for some kind of vending and things, so they could have their cells for charities and stuff
I mean,
there.
that was gonna turn into about $250,000 project by the time we bought it, demoed it, and put up a new facility there. And we just felt that if we went in another direction, it would be something that was doable.
I figure if someday, if that ever happened, this would be a good spot for it. And would this be maintained by the city parks then, or in the public works, just like our other shelters and other parks?
Yep, and as part of the process, what we did is we had leadership and actually personnel from multiple departments. We had planning, we had parks, we had public works, we had utilities, all kind of got together and made sure that we covered all the bases, and then Rotary was involved as well, because they certainly have an interest down there. They want to continue to see the park thrive, and this is kind of what we, came up through our collaboration, and we did look at, all sorts of options, but at the end of the day, this is kind of where we landed. Okay, somebody else have their hand up down that way, or, oh, okay.
Motion to approve?
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Robinson. Any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Is that future agenda items, is that where we're at?
Yep.
And did you have anything, or any of the commissioners have anything?
Well, we're gonna continue to work on our list of changes to the ordinances going forward. And certainly we're anticipating some additional commercial activity. it seems likely that, the last we heard even on the hotel was for Kettle Park West, that they're planning on closing on that property the end of this month with starting in April or May. So that's not another actionable item for the planning commission. It's more of a report to you. That's the last that we've learned about the hotel project.
So we anticipate, as long as the economy keeps going and the interest rates stay, you know, where they're at, it'll probably be another good year for construction. So we're getting a lot of interest. Might be getting some RDA stuff this year too, which would be really, really exciting if we can get some things going down there. We'll keep you informed, and anything comes up for you guys, let us know. We'll put it on the agenda. So I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Caravello. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Thank you.